All right.
I don't know if everybody knows Denise. Denise, why don't you introduce yourself?
I am the proud CEO of Atlanta Midtown, and I'm just thrilled to be here. I've actually been in leadership with Keller Williams for 18 years.
Yeah.
Yes, and started out at Atlanta Roswell and gave birth to that baby, and now here at Midtown.
Awesome. So we do this weekly. It's our little weekly side gig to bring everybody statistics and to make you the economist of choice here. And we're excited to just kick this off. So, Denise, I'm going to start off with just some numbers. I see Rick Hale logging in, so he can jump in here in just a second.
I also see Jason.
Hey, Rick, how are you? You're good. You're alive. You got a shirt on. You're good. Hello.
Hey, Brett, I see Jason Hammock has joined us as well, and he is my absolute sidekick and expert in this market. I lean on him a lot for his expertise in the in-town market since it is new to me and old to him. So welcome, Jason. I'm so glad you joined us.
All right.
I mean, I don't like to use the word old, but okay.
We'll get it. Rick, did you get your audio figured out?
I hope so. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome, welcome. So we're going to start off with some numbers. So last week, I popped these numbers up out of FMLS, and for some reason, the stats in FMLS are acting a little funky today. So everybody can see the screen, right? Give me a thumbs up. So last week, there were 1,704 new listings, residential listings, that hit the market in Metro Atlanta, right? And this is basically a running 7-day total. So when I pulled those same numbers this week, we had 1,049 listings that hit the market over the last 7 days. So I'm gonna leave that there for a minute. We'll come back to it. And we don't really have the back on markets or the price movements today because of the way FMLS was working. But look at pending. Last week we had 2,500 pendings go under contract over the previous 7 days. And this week we had 1,265 in Metro Atlanta. That's a big difference. Holds, 159 to 87, 173 withdrawals to 122. Contracts closed, 2020 a week ago in 1,763. So what I'm seeing here, even look at under contracts, we went from 1,071 down to 523. Let's just call it what it is. It is a tightening of the market. And the number that makes it a little, I'm not a glasses half empty kind of guy. I'm actually a glasses half full kind of guy, but I like to talk reality for a minute as well. This listing number is a little scary. When we're only taking 700 less listings than we did a week ago, it just shows that it's getting a little tighter and a little tighter and a little tighter, and it's starting to squeeze a little more and a little more. And any comments from you guys?
I think it's a precursor for a conversation. I wouldn't say that a 1 week anomaly isn't impossible. So obviously this isn't a panic moment. It's just an awareness moment. And if buyer demand hasn't changed, then opportunity for your listing to sell for more money goes up.
Right. And as we start to track these week over week, these same numbers, I think we're probably going to find some 1 week anomalies over the course of time. But I certainly, I would say inventory is a little bit of our bottleneck in the industry right now, obviously. And that's not new information if you've been in real estate for any length of time over the last 30 days, right? Jason, you were going to say something?
I was just going to say there's lots of comments to say. I mean, in all of that, the biggest thing that Denise and I were talking about is I really am starting to feel buyers push back on these writing 30 grand over list price, in order to win a house.
Right.
the supply that we were looking at in Midtown is less than a month, which is insane.
Yep.
So, and then to see even the luxury market go from almost a year of supply to 3 months in a year later during a pandemic, that's insane.
Yep.
So we have to, the only way to fix it and to continue to make money in the market we're in is we got to get listings.
Yep. We got to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
Jumping over to commercial, it's a little bit of the opposite over the last 7 days. And I realize I always want to throw this out on commercial. Realize FMLS is not the major commercial portal, yet it gives us a little bit of a looking glass, right? So they added almost double the listings over the last 7 days. The pendings went from 17 to 22. The closings went from 17 to 19. So the commercial industry is probably starting to build up some inventory, where the residential is really tightening on the inventory. Moving on to leases, new lease listings. A week ago it was 301, and last week it was 524. So if you're an investor, you're a property manager, you're probably capitalizing on the opportunity of low inventory right now, because people, even if they sell their house, they have to have somewhere to live, right? Pendings have gone down a little bit, and closed listings, which just means they got leased, went up from 300 to 353. Any comments, guys? Just numbers, right? It's learning our market, really just kind of going back to residential. Inventory is the opportunity and the bottleneck right now, depending on how you want to look at it and how you want to attack it. And going after those listings is super, super crucial.
Brett, specifically in town, just inside the perimeter, we had last week 425 new listings, 712 new contracts. Think about that. It's double basically. And we only closed 413. So it is very, very, very clear that if you have the listings, if you have the inventory, you have the control, without a doubt. And what that says to me is, if you're representing a buyer, you have to get really, really great at presenting an offer that is going to be outstanding, whether that's an escalation clause or option money or right to inspect versus due diligence. I mean, all of those different things. And we're going to talk more about that in our team meeting tomorrow. But we have to hone our skills so incredibly to be able to manage our buyers' opportunities out there. And as Jason said, now they're starting to kind of go, well, wait a minute, I don't want to pay 20,000 over, 30,000 over. And so what does that mean as buyers back away and realize that they don't want to do that? How does it change our market? Who knows?
Yep.
Well, supply and demand reigns supreme. And the other thing is interest rates are starting to creep up. So people who, either capitalized or weren't as committed to the process may actually hit the pause button to see what happens.
Yeah.
Yep. Rick, you're stealing the show here for a minute. I was going to put this slide up here, which is
sorry about that.
That's all good, man. Here's the 10-year Treasury note. Why is this an important statistic? Well, if you've talked to any economist out there, this is the precursor to mortgage interest rates. So when the 10-year Treasury note is on a upward trajectory, mortgage rates will follow historically that upward trajectory. And if you're looking over the last year at this 10-year Treasury note, we've really kind of started to climb. And if you go back even further, if you look at over a 3-year period, we went down, right? We rode those interest rates down, and we're always trying to buy at the bottom and sell at the top, when interest rates are trying to buy at the bottom and sell at the top, right? So the Treasury note has just slowly started to climb. And here's why this is important. Right now, you got buyers that are getting pre-qualified, or they may have been pre-qualified 6 months ago, right? Well, if an interest rate goes up 0.5 percentage point, it changes the affordability your buyer can buy. And if they got pre-qualified back in October and they're not going to buy a house until August or April, that interest percentage point may change their buying power, right? And I think this is important for agents to know, one, because you don't want to get caught in a deal where the pre-qualification is no longer valid for that price point because of interest rates, but it's also something you should know to be able to consult your buyers around the power of now. And I get it. It's tough right now. It's not fun in being a buyer in this market in certain price points. However, your affordability changes. And all indications say interest rates are they're not going crazy up, but they're going up enough to where you may see a 0.5 point change in interest rates. And it certainly will affect that affordability. But
it's up 0.5 point week over week, best I can tell. I did a little bit of research. So it's not if, it's now. And so you have to, I think in consulting your clients, you need to make sure that sometimes they're concerned because of supply and demand, sometimes they're concerned because of the overall pricing, but ultimately you nailed it, Brett. Affordability is the #1 factor in motivating people to move now or later. And, yes, prices could be peaking and maybe they're high, but at the end of the day, if the interest rate goes up 2 points over the span of 6 months or a year, it could completely change the buying dynamic. And so that's where great, solid consultation, a great consultation pays dividends.
Yeah, I would recommend that you go to your alliance partner, your favorite lender in the office, and say, I have a buyer who's looking to buy this home at this price. And if the interest rate goes up by X, what does that look like? And then take them real numbers on the property that they're looking to buy right now so that they can make an informed decision. Do I buy at the top of the market, higher price, pay a little bit more for a lower interest rate? Or do I wait and have a higher interest rate? What does that mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
Good advice.
Jason, you got anything to add?
I will say there is a little bit of silver lining as far as the Midtown market goes. Condos resales are actually that inventory isn't as painful as the rest of it. So this is maybe a good time for someone to go and look at some resales in the condo market as far as your buyers go.
Yeah.
Right now, Katie posted something the other day on her social media that I really thought was interesting. If you had a 2.97 interest rate today versus a 3.18 interest rate, that's over $100 a month in your mortgage payment, which for those of you that have worked with buyers, sometimes that's going to change your price point.
On what loan amount?
350 was purchase price.
Okay. Yeah.
Wow.
So affordability, right?
Yep.
All right. So we had a little drama over the weekend, guys. There was a wild and crazy MLS posting that hit the market. And I think this is, it's certainly not the first time something's going to happen because of the function of how tight the market is, right? So somebody put an MLS listing up on the market where seller's not paying a broker commission. And it hit all the social media sites, and people were a little frustrated about this over the weekend. And I saw lots and lots of comments. And I'm also telling you, don't think that this didn't happen because inventory is so low, because it certainly did. That was a motivating factor. But after I got over my irritation around this, I thought about this for a second, and I thought, hey, in a multiple offer situation, if the buyer offered to pay the buyer commission, it doesn't go against the sales price up for appraised value. And it's another way to put more money into a seller's pocket in a negotiation strategy versus giving them cash. You're paying a commission instead of raised sales price. I thought, So of course, I don't advocate for this. I think is pretty sleazy to our industry, if you will, and we certainly don't allow it here at Keller Williams. But I do think we are in a cooperative industry, and you're going to see this kind of thing more and more. If we end up in a REO short sale market, you're going to see lots of things, right? So just
Brett,
beware.
you said
Anybody else see
something.
that and get all irritated like I did over the weekend?
Well, Brett, I think you made a good point. You said if the buyers offered to do that, that's a completely different scenario than the listing agent demanding or the seller demanding that this is the way this is going to happen. I mean, that
100%.
sets up two completely different scenarios in how we're going to interact and care about each other in the transaction.
Yeah, so the social media world, if you saw it, lit up a little bit out of irritation. But you don't see a lot of that in healthy real estate markets. When a market goes as tight as it is now, everything comes out of the woodworks. Any other thoughts?
I mean, it's poor form for our industry, but to your point, so when back in the day, so what most people probably on this particular Zoom don't realize is that there was a time when probably 30% of all listings were for sale by owners.
Yeah.
And it was in the, late 90s, early 2000s, it was common that there were just tons of for sale by owner signs. And what I wrote into my buyer brokerage agreement is that if we found a for sale by owner or someone who's not agreeable to paying a commission, that I would earn 2% or, whatever the number you negotiate, but at least you're protected. And two things happen when you play it out like that. At least your client isn't afraid to make it that, like, they're not afraid to bring you into the conversation for fear of losing, a deal or a house. And so it kept me in the conversation. I also wrote, but I had to be the first point of contact before reaching out to that for sale by owner. And so you just don't want them circumventing you because greed took somebody, you want to keep honest people honest. And that's where, when you have a great buyer brokerage agreement and you explain that occasionally things happen, but ultimately when someone puts in there that either they're unrepresented, a seller like a for sale by owner, or no commission, there's a reason. And I would want to know the reason. And that's where your expertise pays huge dividends in doing research to make sure it's not a desperation sale. Maybe there are challenging issues and they're actually trying to dissuade agents from being represented or buyers being represented, just to own the conversation. And so my advice is you need me more than ever, just like in new construction. They try to make it sound like it's just checkbox your way through it. But I think there's more liability and risk in new construction, especially ground up, than any resale, because you don't know what you don't know. And that's where professional representation, really, we earn our wings.
Yeah. And Rick, you actually brought up a point I wanted to make sure I got out there was the way the market is today and knowing these statistics. What action do I take? Well, obviously I got to educate myself and educate my clients, but how do I protect myself as a real estate professional? Because buyers are going to be frustrated in this process. They're going to feel like they're not going to be able to get the house they want. And now more than ever, having a buyer broker agreement signed and professional relationship, professional representation is paramount with your buyers. Because of the way the market is now, I wouldn't even put a buyer in the car. You want that representation signed, sealed, delivered right now. And that's the action you should take for yourself in protecting your professional relationship, right?
Yeah. Well, if you're clear in what your expectations are of them and they're clear in what you're going to deliver, they should never resist. And I've said this many times to my clients, every time, in fact, that I'd never stand between you and the house you're supposed to have. And if for some reason my relationship and my role is hindering that, I'll bow out gracefully. And that just eases their mind. And I've said it a million times, but I've always delivered to the extent no one ever felt compelled to fire me.
Right.
So I have something to say. I just was able to get a client because of an inexperienced agent sent a buyer broker and put in that it was for 12 months, that the broker engagement relationship was for 12 months. And that the client was highly offended by that. And so I'd been in touch with them as well. And so they came to me because I said, oh gosh, if I can't find you something, within 4 to 5 months, I'm probably not your agent anyway. So I got the client by doing a 4-month agreement. So also just, have a conversation. Don't make assumptions and fill in all the blanks with 12 months, because this is a fast market. You got to be able to move fast, and buyers are educated.
Yeah. Well, I think the great response, Sarah. I think the best first question on the planet is, have you ever worked with a professional real estate agent? Tell me about that experience. What did you love? What didn't you love? What would you have liked to have seen different? And that way, instead of you shooting blindfolded for at a target, they'll give you a layup. They'll tell you exactly what they like and don't like, and you can tailor your value prop to that conversation.
There you
Well,
go.
Rick, you said something. You said, have you ever worked with a professional real estate agent? And that there's a big difference between those that are and those that aren't. And one of that is knowing your market, being an expert in the market. I mean, we have a code of ethics that says that we should not engage in a transaction that we are not expert in. That's why commercial agents don't do residential and residential don't do commercial, because we're not expert in them in 99.9%. And one of the things is knowing that your market so well that you can give them specific information. That monthly market overview that you get every month on the very first day of the month, and you can go in and look at a particular area. You can look at area 23, area 22, and price point 400 to 500, and know exactly what the market is saying about what your specific client is looking for. And if you're not studying those on a regular basis and keeping those handy to be able to present them to your clients, then you're doing them a disservice. And knowing what's going on in the market. For instance, in West Midtown.
I was about to say, can we go, for instance, you're the Midtown expert, you and Jason. Share what's going on in your market.
Well, Jason shared this with me this morning. And like I said, I rely on Jason heavily for what's going on in the area. And he said, right now, one of the areas that we need to be paying attention to in West Midtown is that Microsoft is building a campus there that's going to be very community centric in the Grove Park area. And by knowing that information, that's going to change the dynamic of the market in that area and what's upcoming. Knowing what the price point is, knowing all of the data through your chart masters and your monthly market overview, and also your quarterly information, but then knowing that and understanding it, that's how you become the expert and the professional in your specific area. Jason, what else would you say to that?
I mean, we have Grove Park has been hot for a few years now because of the Beltline, because of the quarry. And then you layer on, you got Microsoft opening 95-acre campus over there. You have Airbnb moving their US tech operations to West Midtown. Have Amazon, everybody and their sisters is moving their tech operations to Atlanta. And they're not transferring jobs, they're hiring new jobs. So these people are going to be coming from all of our favorite colleges and universities from around the country, but predominantly in the Southeast, are going to be coming to Atlanta, and they got to live somewhere. We got to figure out where are they going to live and we got to find the inventory. That's the craziest thing. Grove Park is already going crazy, and that's before Microsoft's even broken ground.
Yeah. Jason, you had some specific thoughts on the numbers for area 22 and area 23 this morning. Do you remember specifically what stood out to you?
That was like eight cups of coffee ago. But scary thing, like I said earlier, for detached homes in Midtown, east of the connector, we went from 3 months of supply to less than a month a year later, which that's probably affecting the numbers that Brett's pulling up from FMLS. When we're talking about we don't have a lot of closings, a lot of things going under contract, it's because we have less than a month of inventory, which is just insane.
And Jason, I also got to point on the closing side, real estate agents, for whatever reason, were trained 20 years ago to close everything at the end of the month. So that previous 7 days of it included an end of the month, right? So On closings, that makes sense, but on listings, it doesn't always make sense unless we're always listing on the first of the month. But needless to say, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. Also, like, when we were talking about Grove Park and West Midtown, the sales price to list price is up over a year ago. Number of failed listings is down by 54% from a year ago. I mean, these are some, when things move like 5-10%, that's one thing. But when we're talking about things are going up and down by 50+%, that's that famous word. What is it? Shift? I mean, that's a shifting market,
Yeah. So what takeaways we want to leave everybody with today? I think listings are still king or queen, right?
Yep.
Inventory is a little bit of a bottleneck right now. And what action would you take from that is maybe what you've always done could use a boost right now. Maybe go try a new tactic to go create an opportunity for listings that is a little bit faster than a monthly neighborhood mailer or a regular newsletter. Maybe you do need to go door knock right now. Maybe you do need to do some handwritten letters or some other activities. Get with your coach or your team leader that are a little faster results oriented to move that market faster. Interest rates are creeping up, which means affordability is creeping down. Make sure you understand what that means. And then we talked about the importance of a buyer-broker agreement right now. And Rick, I think, said it the best, is it's that professionalism to our industry, but even more so, you should always do it, but even more so in a tight inventory market when buyers are going to have frustration no matter what you do. Any parting thoughts?
I've got one. I would say that the interest rate conversation applies to sellers the same way it does buyers, because the dynamic of supply and demand might shift when fewer buyers show up for their house. An extra point might change the sheer volume. And, you get 3 offers on a particular house, you think the house is hotter than hot, but if 2 of those go away, it's just an everyday listing and there's no longer competing energy. So spring market's coming. And my advice is, if you've got anybody thinking about selling, I would highly advise them to list pre-spring and before all the flowers come out, because you're going to beat a lot of people who are playing the spring game. And you're also going to potentially outrun some of the interest rate dynamics in the conversations and any doubt or fear in the buyer's mind.
Hey, I want to mention one thing. I'm not sure exactly where it was. It was on the north side, but we actually had the police out directing traffic because of so many people at an open house on Sunday. So I'm telling you, and Blaine's on the call, and she'll tell you that holding an open house these days is a great place to get those buyers and pick up new clients and potentially sellers as well, if they see what a phenomenal job you're doing in hosting that open house. So if you are not spending some time on the weekends out there, or maybe even some evenings as people are going home from work, doing some open houses, I think you're missing a huge opportunity in picking up new clients. I mean, there were so many people, they had to have police direct traffic. How many clients could you have picked up if you were holding that house open? I'm thinking 1 or 2 at least.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
Nothing attracts a crowd like a crowd.
There you go. Right. Happy Monday, everybody.
All righty. Thank you much.
Good to see you.
I don't know where you get this.
There you go. Bye.